Hey, welcome to our class of Tuesday Night Beer School with me, Chad, of Chad's Beer Reviews. Do another strong type beer, because we just did the American barley wine a few weeks ago, so we're going to the other side of the pond. We're doing old ale, which is a British style. Overall impression, a stronger than average English ale, though usually not as strong or rich as an English barley wine, but usually malty, warming, shows positive maturation effects of a well-kept aged beer. Now we gotta skip down to the comments and all that. Strength and character vary widely. The predominant defining quality for the style is the impression of age, which can manifest itself in different ways. Complexity, oxidation, leather, vinous qualities, etc. Many of these qualities are otherwise false, but the resulting character of the beer is pleasantly drinkable and complex, then those characteristics are acceptable. In no way should those allowable characteristics be interpreted as making an undrinkably off-flavored beer somehow in style. Old Peculiar is well known, but fairly unique beer that is quite different than other old ales. That's kind of a weird, slightly passive aggressive way of describing it. History, you guys can read that if you want. Characters and ingredients. Composition varies, though generally similar to British strong ale. The aged character is the biggest driver of the final style profile, which is more handling than brewing. Style comparison. Roughly overlapping the British strong ale and the lower end of the English barley wine styles, but always having an aged quality. I love this. It says the distinction between an old ale and a barley wine is somewhat arbitrary, above 7% ABV, and generally means having a more significant age quality. So we look at our vitals, 30 to 60 IBUs, fairly bitter, 10 to 22 SRM, probably in that amber, light brown range. Gravity, pretty high, and ABV 5.5 to 9. So the beer we're doing tonight is actually an American version. I haven't seen this in years. This is the brand new 2023 Old Stock Ale from North Coast Brewing out of Fort Bragg, California. 10.9 ABV, pretty strong beer. There is a bottling code on it, but I cannot make heads or tails out of it. Actually, if we bring up their website here, they actually say, original gravity over 1100, generous hopping rate, and they make a point of saying it's made with Maris Otter malt and 𝓑𝓏𝓲𝓭𝓮 and East Kent Golding hops, all imported from England. So I think it's safe to say that they are going for an English old ale style. It's probably like the only one you can get in America. I mean, think like Sierra Nevada or Dogfish Head or any of those big macro craft breweries make it. So let's see this in the glass and we'll get to judging. All right, so I've got the old stock ale poured. Nice looking beer, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's give it a smell here. Yeah, I would call this very fruity. Has that kind of English quality to it. I mean, they did say it is made with English ingredients. I'm not sure about the yeast, though. I assume that's probably the house yeast, but yeah, so I get a lot of like kind of dark fruit on this one, like cherries, almost berries too. I probably wouldn't describe it as wine or vinous, other than like almost like grape juice, not really like, Cabernet or something like that, but it does have a fruity, I will say it does have a fruity quality to it. That 10.9 ABV is surprisingly tame. There's a vanilla quality to it, I would say. There's a slight woodiness to it, but it's not nearly the extent of any of the bourbon barrel aged styles or something like that. I think this may be aged on wood or just in foeders, vats, but it is not spirit aged. Although I think they do have a version of that. Yeah, to me it smells sweet. I definitely call it just like super rich, really, really longly boiled wort. I think like there's like a little bit of like a citrusy quality to like the hops, almost it's a little citrusy, maybe a little floral. I don't think I'd call it earthy. It's definitely not peppery, but it's not citrusy in like the way that like a Stone or a Sierra Nevada would be. I mean, these are all English hops. It's odd because it's more. I just find like the English hops like orange marmalade, whereas like American West Coast hops are just like straight up like orange juice or like the actual orange or the fruit itself. Yeah. So I would call it, very rich, bready, sweet, fruity, slightly citrusy hops. Very, very tame alcohol. Slightly woody. I would not call it It doesn't seem. I mean, it is a 2023 bottling, so I don't know how much they age it before they bottle it, but it does not really seem to me to have like a, sherry or cardboard kind of quality to it, which is actually in this particular style is acceptable, just as long as it's not like, overwhelming. All right, so let's check the specs on aroma. Malty-sweet with fruity esters, often with a complex blend of dried fruit, vinous, caramel, molasses, toffee, light treacle, or other specialty malt aromas. Some alcohol and nutty oxidative notes are acceptable. So does it say acceptable? Akin to those found in sherry, port, or Madeira. Hop aroma not usually present. All right, well, malty-sweet, yes. I'm not really getting the caramel molasses like the way that you would get like in like a real English barley wine. I mean, I did say like there is a vanilla kind of quality to it. Some alcohol, nutty. Yeah, but I said it's not really oxidized. So I don't know. I think like maybe you have to actually age the bottle itself for that old ale quality to really come out. But I mean, I think it should be there as soon as it's ready for purchase. So I'm actually going to go a little low on this one. I'm going to start with an 8. And I could bump up to a 9. I don't think I could go higher than that. Appearance. Well, you saw when I poured it. So coming out of the bottle, it looks brown, but once we get in the glass, actually up against the wall, it looks like a mahogany ruby. But on camera here, it's kind of hard to tell. But it is. I would call that is a classic old ale color of like a kind of a chestnut brown. It is quite hazy. I can't see my hand through it, but it's always like that kind of caramel color that you tend to get in old ales. And actually did pour a pretty big head, and it's still sticking around, which I'm surprised. Don't really trying to see if you can see the alcohol legs. Yeah, you can. If you look real close, you can see that clear fluid between the foam there. Yeah. So I will say it is pretty good looking. It's not clear, but I think that's, if I remember correctly, I believe that's acceptable for the style since these beers are meant to be aged. All right, so let's check out the specs on appearance. Deep amber to very dark reddish brown color, but most are fairly dark. Age and oxidation may darken the beer further. Clear, but can be almost opaque. Well, that's kind of moderate to low cream to light tan colored head. Retention average to pour. Yeah, but it'll say it's clear. But I guess, but by opaque they mean like it's so dark that light can't pass through it. But I am seeing light through this. It's just, yeah. I mean, it's hazy. It's, I don't know. And they give you quite a range there. So again, it's not exactly living up to the specs exactly. I will give that a 3. I don't know. I think I'd have to consult another judge to see if they'd really be a stickler to give that, a 2 or something. All right, so here's the best part. Cheers. Or as they say in England, cheers. Wow. Well, the first thing that struck me is that it tastes very, very similar, almost exactly to how it smells. Those fruity maltiness on there, like I said, like I think it's like pick like any red fruit, like cherry, Macintosh apple, cranberry maybe, and that's kind of the flavors that I'm getting here. So like kind of like red fruits. I don't really get like dried fruits that much. Like maybe like a little bit of raisin, maybe, but it is not in that classic dried fruit kind of flavor. I will say like those citrusy hops. Again, I said it's more like orange marmalade, and instead of like American hops, which are more like just straight up orange or like orange juice concentrate, is nothing like a West Coast IPA. If you ever had like pretty much any English beers with English ingredients, you'll know that character. So it's like almost like orange marmalade. So it's like citrusy and kind of sweet at the same time, but not like super rich. The bitterness is actually, it's enough for balance, I guess I would say. I actually on the website, I think, do I still have it up? Yeah, I think they said it's like 34 IBUs. Yeah. 10.2 ABV, 34 IBUs. I think this bottle said 10.9. Yeah, 10.9. So who knows the last time they updated this website? Well, they put the new picture on there. Yeah, 34 IBUs. It's not the same as like an American Pale Ale. So I mean, it's enough hops to really notice, but it's not to the extent of like like Sierra Nevada Bigfoot. Like that is highly, highly hopped, and this probably has like half the bitterness of that beer. I will say I do get the oxidized quality to it, as I've said for years, is that lemon lollipop kind of flavor, and I will say it is there. It is quite subtle. I notice it. A new drinker, like if Christine was here, she might not notice it, but I do notice it. I also noticed that like the beer, you would think just by looking at it, just by me describing it, that this is going to be like some super sickly sweet, just malt bomb. And it is not. A good one to compare this to, if you ever had Samuel Smith's Winter Welcome Ale, that's actually a British strong ale. It's not really a winter warmer because they don't add spices to it. So it's kind of like that beer, but a little stronger and just like a little older. I do get a little bit of vanilla, maybe like a tiny, tiny little hint of like woody quality to it. But again, I'm not sure if they age this in fooders or if it's just, bright tank aged for like a year or something. But yeah, so it's interesting because like it's nice and sweet, but not nearly sickly sweet. And if you ever had an English barley wine, not nearly as sweet as that. So it is like kind of a nice sweeter beer with like a little bit of an aged quality to it. Still enough hops. I mean, also think because the bottle is fairly fresh, there's enough hops in there for like, give the hops are imparting some flavor of their own and offering, quite a bit of bitterness to it. But to me, it drinks very, very English. I think the only thing that's missing is like the British yeast esters. I'm not getting like that British quality to it. It's, it's a very American yeast character on here. So, I mean, it's pretty tasty. Let's see how it compares to the specs. Flavor, medium to high malt character. Yeah, I'd probably say medium high. With a luscious malt complexity, often with nut, caramel, and molasses-like flavors. Yeah, of all these, I'd probably say it's closer to caramel. It's not really, it's maybe a tiny little bit nutty. Light chocolate or roasted malt flavors are optional, but should never be prominent. I do not get those at all. It does say they're optional. Balance is often malty-sweet, but may be well-hopped. Okay. The impression of bitterness often depends on the amount of aging. Moderate to high fruity esters are common and may take on dried fruit or vinous characters. So it does say common, but not required. The finish may vary from dry to somewhat sweet. Extended aging may contribute oxidative flavors similar to fine old sherry, porter, Madeira. Alcoholic strength should be evident, though not overwhelming. Low diacetyl optional. That's interesting that they mentioned diacetyl. I don't get butter on here. By the way, I forgot to mention the finish there. So I mean, the finish is on the sweeter side, but it is not. Again, like I said, it's not sickly sweet. So I mean, it's finishes like a little sweet. Plus, like I mean, the alcohol is in there, which I kind of passed over. So it adds kind of a drying quality to it. So, it finishes sweet, but then you also have the alcohol in there. Just kind of like, cleans it up real quick. And also you have like a real slight warming. I will say that is really nice, yeast, yeast caretaking, that this yeast, there's no fusel alcohol in here, which you tend to get with a lot of freshly bottled, really strong beers like this. So I will say that this beer is living up to the specs for flavor much better than the other specs. So I'm going to go higher on this one than I did on the others. I think this is like at least 17. I think I could even do 18. I don't think I could quite go higher than that. Mouthfeel. How does it feel in the mouth? I mean, it's a pretty big beer. I mean, you don't even have to drink it. I bet you can probably tell. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say straight up full bodied, like a huge behemoth. I've had, way stronger beers with like thicker bodies and lower alcohol. But I would call it medium full, at least, maybe full, not very full. Carbonation is on the lower end, probably about medium low to low CO2. Texture is actually, obviously it's not exactly crisp like a Bud Light, and it's not super creamy like, Guinness or anything like that either. So but it's certainly more, creamy than crisp. Medium to full, chewy body, although older examples would be lower in body due to continued attenuation during conditioning. Okay. Alcohol warmth is often evident, always welcome. Yeah. Low to moderate carbonation depending on age and conditioning. Light acidity may be present as well as some tannin if wood age. Both are optional. I have had other old ales where it did have a Brett quality to it, and it was kind of acidic. But yeah, this one is right there. And it does say medium. It doesn't have to be a huge behemoth of a beer. So I mean that is right there on mouthfeel. I think I'm gonna go the full 5 out of 5. Overall impression, it's a really good for an American example because of using English imported hops and malts. I think it's right there. I think that the only thing I'm missing is that they should really use some, or maybe they did use English yeast on this, but it doesn't really come through on that. But so I'm gonna say 8 out of 10. So that gives a total score of 41. I'll give it a 9 on aroma, but I think that's about the best I could do, which is giving me a 42. So I mean, it's almost a classic example. I mean, it's really, really good, especially it's American beer of this niche British style. So you got to kind of score grade on a curve a little bit, but yeah, this is pretty tasty. So check this out if you can find it. North Coast Old Stock Ale. Well, obviously the older, you're gonna get a little bit more. You're gonna get that more age character out of it. But I think this is ready to drink now. It's not it's no fusel alcohol or something like that where it needs to breathe for 6 to 12 months. This is ready to drink right now. This is not a challenge. So, yeah, I think that wraps it up for old ale. Very, very hard to find style in the States, but for all my UK listeners or viewers, I should say, these things are probably in every local bottle shop. All right, so if you watch all the way in, you're awesome. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week from their class. Cheers.
Somebody brewed it. Chad just reviewed it. Thanks for watching Chad's Beer Reviews.
Trust me, the next episode will be a lot better.